Oh boy, Security Breach just got a DLC, and, well, did it live up to the hype? Well, just ask Plain Trace then. But I still want to talk about the game myself. So first off, to start, I love this game. So, why have an honest review in the thumbnail? Well, just because you had a lot of fun with something doesn't necessarily mean you can't discuss all of its problems. So I'm gonna do what the FNAF community hates the most and decide to be objective and unbiased about my view of this game, while also still giving my own personal insights, of course. Because hey, the fun of a game is what you have with it. So anyways, to start off with, this game went from a big, open-world, innovative stealth Metroidvania sort of 3D adaptation of the FNAF series, to a linear puzzle-solving game. But hey, at least this time Steelwool actually realized what they could feasibly do with such a small team. But anyways, this whole game revolves around you traversing small, crowded corridor environments and unlocking security nodes over and over again to progress in the game, while playing a minigame or puzzle section every now and then too. And honestly, when it really comes down to it, the gameplay is really just a slightly more ambitious version of Tattletale. But even with its almost bare-bones simplicity, getting to the gameplay, it is actually really friggin' fun overall. Even with the gameplay loop being pretty repetitive overall, I still had a blast searching every corner of the environment for each security node and scouting out the cramped but still pretty dang cool environments present in the game. And as for the mini games and puzzles, my personal favorite out of all of those levels is the one with the mini Music Men and Bonnie Bowl. I mean, I just love how you gotta do the FNAF 3 thing and lure them away for a moment. But instead of frantically trying to complete tasks like in FNAF 3, now you just gotta sprint over to where they once were, and then run back before they try and get you. It's a ton of fun, honestly. However, I really think this game needed a darkness slider at the intro, since one's experience of the game can easily go from basically walking around in broad daylight playing a glorified Hello Neighbor to playing a personalized copy of Outlast with half a bandana and glaucoma real fast. And I really believe this is why so many people have such wildly different playthrough lengths for such a simple, linear game. I mean, some people beat this in like an hour and 30 minutes, while I've seen others take more like 8 hours to beat this. So, yeah. That's a pretty enormous oversight on Steelwool's part if you ask me. But hey, it's still pretty amazing how the massive piles of disassorted rubble can somehow guide you to exactly where you need to go in the game, even when you just can't see shit in front of your eyes. And I gotta say, the character designs in this game were also pretty damn good overall. Initially from the teasers, I was afraid that these designs would be pretty uninteresting, honestly. Where apart from Monty, it just looked like we got Shattered Chica, Shattered Roxy, and probably Shattered Freddy. And overall, I thought they looked pretty goofy in the trailer, honestly. But in the game, they look pretty good, actually. But even then, let's face it, the three standout designs here were easily Monty, Freddy, and the Mimic. And oh man, do I love these designs. The almost completely destroyed, but still shiny and ferocious Monty was a really cool concept. And the Freddy and Mimic reveals were just to die for, honestly. I mean, they had us just so damn good with the Freddy tease in the gameplay trailer. Back then, we were under the impression that we were just going to be helping the calm, gentle dad Freddy escape from the rubble. So to just see him mechanically emerge from the debris, joints robotically cracking back into place, and him just popping up without a head and his gaping chest plate wide open was, almost frame by frame, just genius on all levels. And the Mimic reveal? While objectively really predictable and underwhelming, oh boy was that an awesome experience. I mean, just to watch Cassidy peer behind the wall, she just magically destroyed in fear that she has just killed the friend who she's been desperately searching for, only to see those wide eyes light up and have the other walkie-talkie thrown at her was an amazing experience for me. I mean, it is crazy just how much of the Mimic's story and personality were told through a few distorted voice lines and a lanky junk robot design, honestly. And I'll talk more about that soon. But all in all, for the designs in the game, I mean, they aren't exactly jaw-dropping per se. And actually, I'd argue they overall hover more around the mid-level, which is exactly why I think fan art and fan renders are shockingly scarce for all these characters. But hey, at worst, they get the job done. And at best, they make for some really friggin' cool reveals. I mean, I saw the Mimic reveal from 10 miles away, and it still probably could have been done way better overall. But damn, I was still busting one straight out to it when it happened. Although in all honesty, I do wish we got to see these characters for more than like 2 minutes each in the game. But before we hop into that, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Factor. Hey kids, don't you just love eating fresh, gourmet meals, but your incredibly mentally intensive, busy lifestyles prevent you from having any time to cook? Well, Factor Meals comes to the rescue, because Factor Meals makes both your nutrition goals and time management goals all the more easier by delivering fresh, never frozen meals right to your door. Choose from over 34 weekly flavor-packed dietitian-approved meals, all ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Tired of inflation and rising costs limiting your lifestyle options? Well, Factor swoops in again with an assortment of over 45 delicious add-ons, including breakfast items like delicious apple cinnamon pancakes and bacon cheddar egg bites. Or if you want to decide to satiate any of the thirsty little urges inside of you the healthy way, you can try refreshing beverage options like the cold-pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. And as a very busy YouTuber myself, Factor cuts down on my grocery trips and cooking, so there's more time for my favorite outdoor activity: touching grass. And in all truth, I basically begged for this sponsorship because I really like Factor and HelloFresh. And the reason why you don't see much sponsored content on FNAF related videos is because all you nerds don't spend any money on anything except for Funko Pops, jars, and Roblox costumes. So instead of contributing to that stereotype and just eating soggy, 3-day-old fast food that you had delivered for like $70, head to Factor75.com or click the link down below and use the code ShyCrow50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and eat some dang quick, dang affordable, and dang good food today. And remember, use the code ShyCrow50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and start becoming a functional member of society today. Now on with the video. And on a side note, this game is a notable first in the series that doesn't really have jump scares anymore. Now instead, they're death animations, with the jump scares themselves being almost exclusively limited to the environmental scares. And honestly, while this is a super cool approach overall, I felt a little underwhelmed by the presentation, really. Make no mistake, some of these animations are really good, but I feel like most really compromise on the scare factor a bit too much here, which in all fairness is a tough tightrope to balance, as the jump scares in the FNAF game serve 3 main purposes. One being, well, to scare. The second being to showcase some of the personality for the character in question. And thirdly, to serve as a game over screen that you can get over and over again without it becoming too obnoxious for the player. Focus too much on element 1 and the jump scares get obnoxious really fast. Focus too much on element 2 and you lose a lot of the horror. And focus too much on element 3 and you compromise on both elements 1 and 2. This is something that various games have tried to improve in various ways since the original FNAF series came out, with most games nowadays taking the Taiken Sons approach, where it's just a quick flash on screen, done. Quick flash on screen, done. Just enough personality, just enough loudness and scare, and bam! It's so short and benign that it has almost no chance of becoming obnoxious. However, this game goes the opposite way and focuses solely on the personality and game over aspects, which I'd be fine with if all the jump scares were as good as Monty's and the Mimics. But actually, screw Monty, because the Mimic jump scare, mommy. The idea that this lanky-ass junk robot just methodically pins you to the ground and just smashes your head in with its palm while stimming out to its last verbal message tells you everything you need to know about the Mimic. And it is scary as hell too. Although, of course, that one issue from Security Breach where the game kinda just shits itself right before a jump scare is still present here, unfortunately. So that can kill a lot of the excitement around one. And speaking of the performance and graphics for this game, well, while it is quite impressive just how much scene geometry they can squeeze into each shot of this game, yeah, they are pretty damn muddy, to be honest. This game is like Security Breach in that it still has 10 billion polygon models and like 16K textures, but now all of the advanced lighting is completely gone. And the data streaming is still just so bad for this game that everything just loads in as PS2 graphics most of the time. Which of course means that all the fandom thinks that this game looks like Kingdom Come Deliverance. But hey, finding a FNAF fan who has played a video game outside of Minecraft and Roblox is just as rare as finding a Genshin player who lives a normal and healthy lifestyle. The two just don't go well together now, do they? And I mean, I love the GameCube nostalgia and all, but still, the fact that such insanely detailed models and textures can turn to such soup on the drop of a dime means that this game has a downright insane LOD system, where the engine automatically detects just how much processing power it is using up and lowers the visual fidelity of everything on screen accordingly. Which would be cool and all, if this wasn't friggin' Unreal Engine. But in all seriousness, I actually know exactly why and how Security Breach managed to absolutely butt-fuck a multi-billion-dollar game engine. And as crazy as it sounds, this is all because absolutely screwed up on the and by making a whole bunch of overly ambitious internal changes to the engine, they accidentally made the entire thing super unstable, and Steelwell has never been able to fix it. So now, Despite the fact that this is an incredibly linear, small space corridor game, Steel Wool just kinda has to run with the punches and lower the graphical fidelity to eye bleed level so the game can actually run. But anyways, getting back to the gameplay, you know, honestly, as fun as this whole thing was, if I'm to keep following the train of brutal honesty in this video, as much as I had fun with it, the gameplay is objectively pretty mid overall. So for that, I decided to bring on my good friend Ambience to share some of his thoughts real fast.
What did I think of Ruin? Well, I had a pretty good time with it, and I've already come around to liking it just like I did Security Breach itself. But I gotta be totally honest, man, this game has a shit ton of things wrong with it that people seem to just be ignoring because it's different than the main game. Critics of Ruin have already pointed out how the entire game feels like it's on rails, of course, but I feel like the far more pressing issue, at least for me personally, is the fact that the same 3 mobile minigames are recycled over and over and over. Call me old-fashioned or stuck in the past all you want, but I don't feel like there should really be a universe where I have to actively think about whether I'm playing Five Nights at Freddy's or Where's My Water. And even the people who are willing to criticize this game seem to be content to just focus on the gameplay and leave the writing untouched, which is really funny to me because where was that mentality when the main game released? Did these people just, like, spawn into the community 3 weeks ago? Anyway, I digress. The writing for this game is actually pretty alright until we reach the ending, at which point I assume that Steel Wool just gave all of their employees the day off and tasked a 14-year-old writer from Wattpad with finishing the dialogue. Gregory just morphs into even more of a cringe lord than expected here. We can't risk being followed. Bro, you're not John Wick. You're a homeless little brat whose closest thing to an actual father figure is Freddy goddamn Fazbear. Even before the ending, though, there's just a lot of really weird narrative decisions here. Like, for example, I feel like it was a kind of mutual understanding between the fans and Steel Wool that Vanny needed more screen time and plot importance here. So, you know, considering that was like the #1 criticism of Security Breach, and I figured they would do something about it. Well, as it turns out, their idea of doing something was making Vanny a mask that you can put on your face to gain the powers of schizophrenia. That's right, that's her screen time, that's her plot relevance. You fucking wear Vanny. You wear her. Furries have been doing that since before the game released. Oh, but if you wear her for too long, then this significantly less cool rabbit thing appears in front of you and tries to summon an alligator, so that's neat, I guess. Totally makes up for the loss of the most interesting and high-potential villain in the entire series. I honestly am a big fan of this DLC and Security Breach in general, but it's getting funnier and funnier to watch Steel Wool make a desperate attempt at fan service and then have it backfire in the most absurd way possible. Maybe find a bit of a middle ground between this style and the main game, guys.
So, yeah, I agree with 95% of what he said. Ruin's gameplay was a lot of fun, but more in the kind of cool, neatly gratifying sense versus, well, being terribly good overall. It really is like this almost perfect inversion of what happened with the base game. But thankfully, this time around, Steel Wool was smart enough to dumb down the gameplay to levels that your average FNAF fan could wrap their minds around. And as such, just about every impression that you see online about the gameplay is overwhelmingly positive compared to the base game Security Breach. And funny enough, I actually think Maz on Twitter has the best take on this, because Security Breach actually was super well done mechanically speaking. It was just way too ambitious, so its flaws and shortcomings overpowered it a bit. Okay, maybe overpowered it a lot. And then so did the fanbase too. But even then, if we were to talk about the core gameplay loop, I still think it was leagues above Security Breach Ruins. But of course, each to their own. From a mechanical standpoint, I also love the visor system that alters reality around it. Going back to the unironic GameCube nostalgia, I remember that in my first Security Breach video, I talked about how the Metroid Prime trilogy was obviously a major inspiration for this game, and that I think the base game could have been a lot better if they had just copied that approach even more. And for this DLC, they took what I think is a super innovative interpretation of the visor system from those games, where reality is no longer just seen through a cool enough filter that allows you to, like, solve puzzles that you couldn't before, like in the Prime games. In Ruin, this thing takes you to an alternate reality, a sort of flip side to things where now even a lot of the obstacles don't exist. To me, this is really a super developed version of the Dark Ether concept introduced in Metroid Prime 2, which I'm gonna go out on a limb and speculate was a heavy inspiration for this game. But instead of being the cool looking pain in the ass that it was in that game all those years ago, with Ruin, I think this concept was perfected, with it being a blast to travel between the supposed AR world and its real-world counterpart, exploiting the differences between the two to progress forward. It's super quick, super snappy, and best of all, it's always super clear just what and where things need to be done. But honestly though, I really think that Steel Wool, even with the massive changes Steel Wool made behind the scenes and the drastically reduced scope of this game, I still think that Steel Wool ended up biting off a bit more than they could chew. Because remember how this game didn't get a release date until almost 2 weeks before release, then launched exclusively on PC and PlayStation, and then ended up being chock full of tasks and quests that literally didn't do anything, and had an ending in the files that was just straight up absent? Yeah, something tells me that this game, though super polished at its core, still ended up with a major crunch before release. I mean, for fuck's sake, this game didn't even have a brightness slider at the start at release, meaning that for some people, this game was insultingly easy and boring. And for others, like some dumb fucks that I know, they just spent hours and hours running around in circles in the dark while playing Outlast 2030 Vision Edition. So yeah, I think that this game could have used another month or two in the oven. But overall, it's really clear that they just needed to release this on the 25th so that it could cover up news that the FNAF movie is getting a PG-13 rating. Oh, and getting to the environment of this game, I gotta say, while it's not AAA levels of awesome, much like the base game, the Ruined Pizzaplex is really damn cool looking, honestly. I really like how, unlike in the first teaser image, almost nothing is burnt. It's just all rotten and messy. And this is an awesome passive storytelling hint to the reveal that, well, in this timeline, the Pizzaplex didn't burn down, but rather, it was destroyed in an earthquake. I also quite like the neon, AR world effects throughout most of the game too, even if the game really struggles to render these most of the time. But inconsistent graphics aside, things like the security nodes in particular look pretty damn sweet to me, even if the wires often like to do N64 cosplays. Again, I'm not gonna act like the art style or execution is amazing or anything. I mean, it's still pretty damn muddy and kinda half-baked overall, but honestly, I really like it so far. And also, I know I'm gonna get stoned to death as a contrarian for this part of the video, but oh boy, here it goes. I really don't like Cassie all that much. I mean, come on, Cassie personality-wise? Oh boy, am I gonna get fizz-nommed for this. Is really friggin' boring, I think. Sure, everyone in the community is saying that she's an amazing character simply because of how determined she is to save her friend, but apart from the fact that she likes Roxy a lot, we get to see almost zero of her actual personality in the game, apart from like one, albeit very powerful, emotional scene. Hell, the whole game she basically just spurts disinterested, eye-rolly dialogue and squeals from time to time.
I got kicked out of the Vanny network. You said you got rid of that rabbit thing. What happened? There's no way I'm getting near that.
That's it. At least with Gregory, even though we know he's a shithead now, we could really get a good idea of his personality in Security Breach. We know what he likes, we know what he doesn't like, we know what excites him, we know what doesn't. You get the idea. And honestly, it also really doesn't help that Cassie's voice actress, while pretty damn good for video game standards, is really quite weak compared to most of the voice actors FNAF has had before. I mean, anyone who knows what goes into voice acting is probably wincing at least a little bit when they hear the back and forth dialogue between Cassie and Gregory, because the gulf in quality is pretty damn big overall. And I know, a bunch of amateur voice actors and actresses are gonna jump to her defense in the comment section, but come on, you know what I'm saying is true. And also, is it just me, or does her official artwork look like it was ripped straight from a Twitter OC card? Which is probably why the fanbase likes her so much. It's a literal wet dream come true for them. And also, I do find it interesting that her official artwork makes her have way darker skin than she has in the game. I mean, I'm personally a brown-skinned Latino rat, and my hands sure as hell don't look that white, even if I'm only about half as dark as her in real life too most of the time. I also gotta say, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that the reason why the fanbase likes her as much as they do is because everyone was still emotionally recovering from the reveal that Gregory was evil. So she really served as a comfort character by comparison. Oh, and that character design. She's the human equivalent as if Axel the Axolotl made it into the roster. She's everything that the fans ever wanted from a poorly made OC character. But I will admit, the sort of side hints about her being a troubled teen who Gregory took under his wing is really friggin' wholesome, honestly. The idea of her being the lonely, isolated child who it seemed all came crashing down on her during her preteen years is kinda generic when you think about it, but it's really sweet and wholesome the way it's presented in game, okay? And I really think that this could make one hell of a character dynamic in the future between Gregory and Cassie, with one being a disinterested, eye-rolly teen that has a lot of mental and emotional issues, and the other being this really smart, mature kid who has really taken her under his wing, but is also way more than meets the eye as a character, both good and bad. And I mean, even if Cassie feels really self-inserty at times, I really think that they could roll with this and shape her into a really great character. But anyways, with all the hot takes in this video, it's only a matter of time before... or post a bunch of deliberately out of context clips from this video on Twitter alongside some really snarky and salty takes about it, and then I'll be blamed for every negative comment they ever receive afterwards and be demonized for eternity. But hey, 'tis the price of honesty in a chronically online fandom, I say. But all in all, Security Breach Ruin is a really mid DLC that is just so damn fun and enjoyable for me. I mean, just about everything about the DLC is objectively mediocre if you really take the time to look at it. But even then, my ass was still clapping to the ending anyways. And honestly, I feel like this DLC will probably be looked back upon with much more pessimism in the years to come. But hell, even if the DLC itself doesn't age well, it sure was a fucking fun experience today, whether or not my enjoyment of it is really rational or not. But now, finally, to address the one thing that has been hot on everyone's mind throughout this whole ordeal. Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 was better. So I just wanted to give a quick but huge shout out to @FellaMaya for helping me get in touch with the maker of this amazing render that I used in a previous thumbnail of mine. And, well, a shout out to the maker, Blair, as well for letting me use it in my thumbnail. Thank you so much, guys.
It's a new day. It's a new day.